Welcome to a special season of Appraising's Appraisers on Purpose podcast. This season, our podcast is showcasing past and current appraisers who have used their valuation knowledge and skills to invest and build wealth. How did they do it? What have they learned along the way? What can we learn from them so you can be wealthy, wise, and financially free? Your host is real estate investor, entrepreneur, and appraiser Michael Hobbs.
Hey, well, welcome, friends. Hope you're having a fantastic outdoor season this time of year. And more importantly, we are so thrilled to have another informative, insightful, and I would say educational conversation with one of our peers. Tyler, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. And only educational through don't do what I do kind of thing.
Exactly, right? That was I saying, not as I do.
Not as I do, yeah. Just watch this guy. He's an idiot. And then don't do that. Yep. Got it.
Tyler has spoken the value of perusing's Appraisers on Purpose podcast, because here as your host, I have this privilege, like, oh, yay, way to go, Michael Hobbs. I'm like, look, I just get to talk to smart people and people that are smarter now because of decisions that they've made in the past that helped get them to that point that may not have been as good at the time. And we've all had our fair share of those. But a good decision you can make right now is go ahead and subscribe and like the podcast, because that is your signaling to the networks that, yeah, you're getting value out of this as well. And wow, it does make a difference, because, every single week, another person or two or three, or sometimes 7 or 8 reach out and say, oh my goodness, I'm so glad this is here. It's entertaining. It's fun. I get value out of it. And I'm a little bit better person and professional because of it. And Tyler, I'm glad that you're joining us this week.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And yeah, I've listened to your podcast, and man, there's a lot of great stories from appraisers and all sorts of weird interactions and cool experiences. And it's just fun to be part of a community that kind of celebrates what we do. So.
Got it. Absolutely love that. And speaking of getting a sense of what we do and how we do it and how we got to it, we want to know, Tyler, were you born this way, or how did you get into the appraisal and valuation profession?
Well, I was lured in through marriage. So it was
that is a unique way. We have not heard that story.
Okay.
So
and that marriage didn't work out, but it got me into the business. So that's okay. It's okay. So, well, I'll just give you I'll make a short story long here real quick, and I'll give you. Okay, sounds good. I began my journey right out of high school as I opened my own business right away. 18 years old, I opened it with a friend that was 30. We started a ski shop. We quickly grew that ski shop to be we were the largest distributor of a couple really popular brands at that time for a tri-state or 4-state area. And so we grew super quick. I did that for a few years, and then a draft guide in the summertime, and it was awesome. I was skiing with all my heroes, all the people that I wanted to meet. I would go ski with them, and it was really cool. After about 4 years, I realized, like maybe someday in my life, I want to make more than, minimum wage or just scrape by, So about that time, I got into construction, started building some houses. This was 2005, 6, 7, and 8. And of course, there was a lot going on with that, but I lived in a part of the country that wasn't affected that much. And then I would install sprinkler systems in the summertime and ran some crews and did some of those things. And through a series of, selling a couple of those businesses and starting a couple and losing money and occasionally making a couple bucks, I installed a sprinkler system for an appraiser. And to this day, the appraiser says, well, I never really offered you the job. And I was like, well, I heard different, and I took you up on it. So, and then here I am. So I installed the sprinkler system. He was talking about how he wants to expand his business. And I was like, well, I think about that. And I just bought a house in a different market. And I was like, man, I just bought a house. I'm newly married. And this is his stepsister that I married. And I'm like, oh man, I don't know if I can do this. And then I'm doing some sprinkler work, and the sprinkler turned on, and I got sprayed in the face, and it kind of rattled me a little bit. I stood up really fast, and I stepped backwards, and I stepped in this massive pile of dog shit.
My gosh, it sounds painfully familiar.
Well, and then I'm like, that was the moment that I made a decision to, like, this is not for me. I'm not doing a sprinkler anymore. And so I walked from the back of this. It was a multifamily property in Missoula. I walked from the back of that property, and I made a phone call to my stepbrother-in-law. I said, I'm coming. I'm going to be an appraiser. I'll figure it out. So that was in 2013, and then started appraising right after that. But
that's amazing. Wow. So which I very much appreciate. I heard you say you'd cut your teeth in retail. Like you said, you were the largest supplier of
Vocal Technica, marker.
Yep. Recognize the names. Wow. And you were living a great lifestyle. I mean, from the standpoint, I take it you were a single guy at that point, and you got to spend your winters on the mountain, and you got to spend your summers. I thought you said being a raft guide.
Yeah, I was a raft guide on the Stillwater River, and then that later led into overnight trips on the Missouri River as a canoe guide, and we took all sorts of people down the river, and it was a lot of fun. Half-day trips to some little whitewater, and then to some full day, and then overnight 7-day trips in the middle of nowhere in Montana. So it was cool. It was a fun time.
This great experience. It runs for a while, and then you realize that this may not be your future. So you've already had this exposure. Then you get into the sprinkler business.
Yep.
And you get that experience of a whole different type of clientele, and then the work that needs to get done, as opposed to supplying for somebody else. You're actually doing with installation and then, checking the systems to make sure they're working. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, I'm done with that too.
Yep. Yeah. So got my 10,000 hours in a couple different things by the time I was about 33. And then that instant, my sprinkler business in Missoula wasn't going as well as it had in Billings. I didn't have the home court advantage, when you grow up in a town and you know everybody, and
yes,
they kind of just give you the business because they know you. And in Missoula, that wasn't the case. And so Missoula had different ET rates, which is evapotranspiration, how much water a plant uses.
Oh, okay.
So similar rain, similar climate, similar everything else, but it didn't have as much wind, and it wasn't quite as dry in the summertime. So
yes,
because of those two things, you could put a kind of a junky system in and still achieve a really green lawn. And so my competition was so much cheaper than what I was doing. And I was building a better system, but I was losing my butt. And I was probably 40 grand in the hole at that time when I stepped in the dog shit and, got sprayed in the face, and had a business deal transaction fall apart. So we had a handshake deal. The next day, that guy had a heart attack, ended up in the hospital for 45 days or so. And I ran his business. Luckily, I was there to run his business, and came back to him 45 days later. He'd recovered. He was doing great. And we'd had this handshake deal. He handed me a buy sell for 3.5 times what we shook hands on. And I said, well, I can't buy this, man. Like, that's crazy. So I moved out and pulled my stuff out of there and tried to start my own. And that was a tough time. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. You get this opportunity to try to avoid doggy landmine and get sprayed in the yard by going to an appraisal.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then you just, you still get sprayed and you still step in dog poop and, all those things. Yeah. But sometimes you're not out there in the elements. It's a 12-month-a-year gig. You've got all the different parts of appraisal that I really like that come together, where you've got a little bit of time in the field. You have a little bit of time interacting with brokers and homeowners and a little bit of social time. But I also like puzzles. I mean, I also like to bury my head in a project and really get into it. So it scratched a lot of itches, and then that education and of course I hadn't gone to a 4-year college. So in choosing appraisal, the state of Montana, I missed being officially grandfathered in by about a month. So I had to go get I had to go get a 4-year degree to get certified residential.
Bitter at all.
No, not at all. It was totally water under the bridge right from the get-go. It was like, okay. So I was fine with that because I didn't disagree that I wanted to get a 4-year degree, and I wanted to get an SRA, and I wanted to do some of those things. So I knew a 4-year degree was going to be in my future. I was just maybe a little bit, maybe ever so slightly bitter that I couldn't get the certified residential. And I was learning from someone in that whole firm, nobody had a college degree. So there I was, making the decision to become an appraiser, realizing that it's going to take a 4-year degree plus all the education for, all the appraisal stuff, which, that's okay. It's part of the deal. So I made those decisions. I moved towns, sold the house, did all that stuff. It took quite a while. And then I went to school while I was appraising full time and ended up, going to school. The best part, so I just did some local classes and then I transferred to something else in the state, got my 4-year degree during that time, and literally at the state meeting where they originally put that as a requirement. So I'm getting my license at this meeting, and they're talking to me and say, okay, well, here's your license. In the same meeting, they repeal the 4-year degree requirement, certified residential. And I was like, now I'm maybe a little bit better. Now I was like, you guys, you put this rule in place. It takes 4 years to get a degree, and then you don't have any certified residentials. So anyways, it didn't matter because I was going to get my SRA, and
You're a great sport. I don't know that I'd been as good a human being as you've been.
Well, it was fun for a second. Yeah, definitely.
But it's impressive. So you've mentioned a few things right early on that I think it'd be helpful for some people to gain some perspective on. I assume that because of your, at the time, brother-in-law, sounds like that individual must have been a designated appraiser, because most people come into a profession and don't even know about designations.
Yeah. Actually, he wasn't. He was not designated because he didn't have a degree. So he never really pursued any designations. His father, he was a 3rd-generation appraiser. Nobody without a last name of that last name had been really an appraiser in their office ever. So I was the first, and I was married into the family. So, and the step kid. So it was even worse. But anyhow, he didn't get a designation. His dad did get a designation, but had never achieved his 4-year degree. So.
Got it. Yeah. And then how did that become in your realm of awareness? Because I heard you say like, hey, I was willing to do this because I knew I was going to go get this and this.
Yeah, the designation. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I just knew that well, I'm a lifetime learner. And so I look at some of those things like CCIM, for example. I'm a lifetime learner and I always want to go achieve those things. And so anytime there's a designation, I think it's kind of a challenge. And then it's, is every SRA a better residential appraiser than non-SRAs? No, but did those SRAs go through, a couple more steps to kind of test their mettle against peers and see if they're qualified? Yeah, they definitely did. They sat through some pretty tough courses, and they, showed that they can put a more complex appraisal report together. And that's beneficial. I mean, it's helped me when I've done some expert witness work and just gives me a better perspective, bigger worldview on appraisal, and I'm not so stuck in the box, and it gave me the confidence to go into other markets that I didn't know as well, because I knew that I could go use the tools that they gave me and become a credible appraiser in that market. So, yeah.
That's I absolutely love that. So what was it like coming out of the ski environment, out of the sprinkler environment, and then you get over into this appraisal environment, working with your brother?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was good. It was good in general, but it was definitely, I'll say that going back to college after not being in college for 15 years, and, I was doing some math, but it was like, okay, what's a flow rate on this sprinkler head? And, like, okay, how efficient is this system? And it wasn't the same kind of math, especially when you start looking at discounted cash flows and some other, a little bit harder math. My first algebra class in 2014 was like the hardest thing I've ever done. It was insanely hard because my brain hadn't been in that learning stage for so long. And it was really, really powerful to go back to school. I had all these 18-year-old kids and 20-year-old kids that are sitting in the class, and they have life figured out. They're telling me how it's going to go. And I'm like 10 years their senior going, nah, it's not going to go that way. I'm happy that you think that, but I really hope it does for you, but probably not. And it was just a fantastic experience. And it put me in a place where it challenged some of my personal beliefs, and it definitely changed who I am. It gave me a better worldview of like where I fit in the puzzle. It improved a lot of things. So my 4-year degree was very impactful. That coupled with the SRA, and now I've just kept my brain in a learning mode. So I'm just continuously getting more designations and seeking that and trying new things. So now I'm doing development and I'm doing sales and all sorts of things. So, so yeah, I think that big transition though was like, I don't know how to use a keyboard. It's not the same as a pipe cutter. I don't know what I'm doing. It took me 6 months to kind of be able to clunk through some appraisals. So it was not pretty. It was not pretty at all.
Wow. That is something else. And so you mentioned being a part of a generational business. Was it a large kind of office team that you got to join, or was it just like you and one of the legacy members?
Yeah, there were three legacy members in the office. And this is one of the funny things. I kind of knew that I was probably going to be in the right industry because I'm pretty independent, fiercely independent according to my parents, but pretty independent. And I remember going to the first day of work and I was like, well, these guys probably don't know how to make coffee, so I'm going to bring my own coffee maker. And I came around, like, why wouldn't I? I got my own coffee maker. So I come around the corner and there's 3 other coffee makers. There's now 4 people in the office and there's 4 coffee makers. And like, well, what defines an appraiser better than that? I mean, these guys don't know what the hell they're talking about. So I clearly know what I'm talking about. So anyways, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I get it. Now our opinion matters and these guys all have an opinion. So it was good. It was kind of fun. I was pretty neutral. I tend to be pretty neutral most of the time. So I view myself kind of as Switzerland, right? I want to be there and learn from every one of those guys. And there's a father and son there, and then there was an uncle. And so there was some family dynamics that I just didn't get involved with, which was nice. So, or didn't have to participate in.
Okay. So how long were you with that generational business?
So August 26th, 2013 was the first assignment I went on. And then in the spring of 2017, I was in full-time college. I was taking 24 credits actually. And I wasn't producing that much for appraisals, maybe three appraisals a week. And I just couldn't produce anymore because I was taking 20, whatever, a lot of credits. And I had a kid and like a new baby, and there just was no time, and some investments. And so I was busy. And I think I left in March, and I had already kind of started my own thing a little bit. So, yeah.
Good for you. When you decided to go out on your own, I know not everyone does, but some people do.
Yeah.
One of the things that I would infer is that you were probably significantly better prepared to start a business, given two completely different industries you already had been in and operated,
Yeah.
not just for a season, but for an extended period of time.
80% of all businesses fail within 5 years, according to the U.S. Census Bureau. With so many roles and responsibilities that must be managed and have nothing to do with appraisal reports, is it any surprise that it's hard to keep up, much less having a sense of peace, stability, and profitability that comes from growing your business? Given all of this, you might already be thinking about exiting your business one day. Don't miss the limited opportunity to work with Michael, a real estate expert and professional coach. He has worked with more than 300 owners and entrepreneurs to find their highest and best use by solving problems that reach their most important goals. To impress decades of learning in today's by working with Michael. Michael is famous in real estate and business coaching. With his help, you can accelerate your growth, increase your quality of life, and earn more money, all while ultimately doing less. Michael helps you not just grow your business, but also find new purpose in it and in your life. If you're ready to take control instead of being controlled, contact him on LinkedIn or email him at michaelh@paru.com.
Yeah, definitely. That was not scary at all.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of people are scared of that step. The uncertainty is something that I'm pretty comfortable with. When I first started the ski shop, you know, here's this 18-year-old kid, and the way that the ski industry did that is we would have to sign and send post-dated checks. So I would send $500,000 worth of checks to the ski company. They would put them in a file, and then they would deposit a check a week. So it's like, you know, here's 10,000 or 15 or 30,000 bucks that I've got to make that 30 grand, you know, in 7 days or whatever. And so, and then if I didn't have it, you know, I'd have to say, well, don't cash that one, you know, like give me another day. I got, you know, this guy's going to come in and pick up 5,000 bucks worth of stuff. So that's where I started. So this was like not as scary, you know, but I did negotiate with my boss because they didn't really have a plan for me. And that's one of the reasons why I went. They didn't have like, we want you to be an appraiser and work for us. And this is what your pay schedule will be. And this is how we're going to do fee splits or whatever. They didn't have a plan. So I said, well, if you don't have a plan, I'm going to go out on my own. But here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to stair-step that. So I said, I'll do 5 assignments a week for you this month, and then I'll do 4 assignments a week this month, and I'll do 3 assignments this month. And so I just kind of weaned myself off of the supply that he had. And it, you know, versus one of my other buddies, when he said, January 1st, I'm going to be on my own. I'm like, well, that's the worst time ever to be on your own. And yeah, I mean, well, Montana's pretty slow in January and February. So I kind of was like, okay, well, that's going to be the most terrifying 2 months of your life, but you'll do it. You'll be fine. So he did that. And that's kind of what I've seen. So I kind of weaned myself off of the larger group and generally stayed in pretty good relationship. You know, there was a little bit of dissension, I guess, right out of the gate. They asked me to leave. I told them 2 months in advance, and they asked me to leave that day. So that's kind of par for the course in financial industries, and I was going to do my own business. So yeah, I don't blame them either. So, but that's kind of the steps that I went through to get out on my own, and then got my 4-year degree. The best little trick there was I interned for my own company, which was
No way. What a great insight.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely do that if you're on track to get your own degree and you already work in the industry.
Yeah.
I hired a buddy to basically be a mentor. And so
Okay.
he had to do all the things, and I paid him a couple $1,000 because it was going to take him some time.
Yeah.
And he would review my appraisals. We'd go over things. He'd say, you can improve this, you can do this. And so I got 9 credits that spring semester by hiring my friend to be a mentor.
That seems like good credit arbitrage.
It was nice. Yeah. Yeah. I wish I could have got the rest of my credits that way.
I'm like 9 credits. I mean, that was probably like 3 courses. I mean, that's solid.
Yeah, it was, I mean, I think I was doing 36 hours a week or something to do that and it was the spring semester. So it was the maximum credits that I could get for it. But
good for you. So, I mean, clearly you're a very resourceful individual and you demonstrate a high level of endurance and persistence. And not that a lot of people in the industry don't, but you also had an entrepreneurial streak as well. So how did that contribute to what I would say is a very intelligent ramp up of, hey, let's work together and transition as I transition out. That's going to both support you and make sure I can eat. And it's harder to sleep at night when you've got a little one screaming because they're starving. So that was,
yeah, well, it was stressful, but it wasn't too far. And I had bet on myself for, 15 years at that time. So it wasn't that scary. And I also had all these other, I had my 10,000 hours in 2 other industries that I knew I could go make essentially what I was making in appraisal because I wasn't at that upper echelon of appraisal income yet. So I wasn't too worried about that. I mean, it was something that was maybe in back of my wife's mind, but not a big deal to me.
I'm thrilled to indeed hear that. And even more important, that, like you said, betting on yourself. What were the actions that you took in that ramp up phase to get established?
Well, so it took me about 4 months to go from being a staff appraiser to on my own.
Mm-hmm.
And during that time, I had my resume ready to go at the beginning of this. I realized that was going to be super important. And
yes,
I spent a lot of time in every lender's office. At that time, there was still a lot of face-to-face stuff going on. So I spent a lot of time doing that. And then I, just signed up for every AMC. I took every job. I didn't really bitch and moan too much about the fee because I just wanted I wanted the experience. I didn't care if it was what it was. So I just said yes to everything. I mean, all the time. Yeah.
Great way to get. You weren't afraid of people, is what I heard you say. No, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that's one of my strengths is that I am not afraid of people. I'm not afraid of maybe I'm a little afraid of looking like an idiot, but not too afraid of that. And so I like that interaction. I like trying to figure out what problem they need to solve. And so sales just kind of comes natural because a real good salesman or woman is looking for solutions for a particular group of people. And I'm not suggesting that those solutions are like hitting a value, but the solution is, when you're talking to a bank, a credible and reliable number. What can we sell this for? How much risk are we really taking here? Will the asset perform on its own? They're taking risks on the borrower and some other things, but that's really what problem they're trying to solve. So can you be reliable on delivery, and can you be reliable on your number? And I think that's also then working with clients and not causing more problems, right? A banker, we're one of the three kind of components that they put together to underwrite traditional mortgage. And so since we're one of those prongs and a good mortgage broker's super busy, they just don't want to worry about it. They want a professional that's going to handle it and do a good job, and not in like, if every appraisal you turn in is $1,000 below the contract price with no substantiated reason, that's going to cause more problems for them. And they can't not choose you because you're on a panel, but they're going to probably, when they recommend to their friend who to use in a divorce or, in a state or whatever, they're going to throw out a name that's like, these guys, even when he doesn't hit value, he substantiates it and he makes sure that, he looks through all the different comps. And when we go back, because we're going to have to go back and the borrower's going to be bummed about it and the seller's going to be bummed about it. When we go back, he's not like an angry badger in a garbage can, like, it's okay. We can work through this. We can get through it, and talk about it. And then I can prove my point. And I've had people that I've literally been pretty sure they were about ready to punch me in the face, and taken that 15 minutes of time to explain, I wish I was wrong. Like, I hope that I'm wrong. If you bring me evidence that I'm wrong, I'd love that, because I don't want to be outside of what you guys have come to mentally and through market influences. But I definitely can't substantiate just a made up number. So I need to have proof of it. So, and then those interactions end up being positive and then they say, okay, well, this guy's, he's not messing with me, and that's really truly what it is worth. So.
Wow, that is impressive. I absolutely love that. I love that. Now, you threw out a couple city references. I'm sure a number of people picked up on it, but some people probably didn't. What state are you in?
I'm in Montana.
Yeah,
So.
I was going to say, not everyone maybe picked up on the references. And help people understand the market, like you had mentioned, in reference to the sprinkler business you were in. Hey, kind of being a hometown experience in one town didn't necessarily translate into business in another, or it was more difficult. And then, of course, you talked about the EV rates and then, of course, competition. But how was that for you in appraisal? Because I don't know that people have a sense of how big or how small those markets really are.
Yeah. Well, a couple things. I was working in a firm that every one of those people had grown up in this market. And I'm in Helena, Montana.
Yep.
The state capital's right back there.
Not that.
State capital. So you can say hi to the Yellowstone crew. They're probably down at Dome or something. Yeah. But so they grew up here, right? And there's these predetermined, you grow up somewhere and you've got a friend that's from one neighborhood, and maybe that's a little bit of a seedy neighborhood. And then as markets change, gentrification happens, or it becomes a popular neighborhood, or it becomes a seedy neighborhood. I don't know. Something happens. And I don't know if I can say that word. I don't know.
Yeah, here you can. You say whatever you want.
That would kind of,
that, like,
like, that was a little tongue in cheek, but I didn't have any of those preconceived notions about the market. And I think that that's really powerful to go to a new market that you don't necessarily know everything. And because of that, I was able to come in here and just say, what's the data actually saying? Like, what is the market sentiment here? It's not, I didn't have any layers of personal opinion. And so I think I was actually a better appraiser in really kind of seeing taking what the market was telling me and turning that into an opinion of value, versus someone that had been born and raised here, or knew of a shooting that happened in this particular neighborhood. And that's rattling around in their brain somewhere. And so as I've lived here longer, there's probably actually some more bias that's just been inherent in what's happened, because I've remembered sales from that neighborhood and that sort of thing. So I actually think I was better, certainly when I was spending all day plus some in front of the computer writing comps and knowing exactly what happened in the market. We're about 85,000 people. Missoula's maybe 125,000. Billings, where I grew up, is now just around 200,000. So those are our big cities. I mean, we have just over 1 million people in the state, and we're the fourth largest landmass in the union. So, and we just surpassed Hawaii for affordability. So we're the least affordable state in the union too, which is great.
I did not know this. So fourth largest landmass in the union, and you surpassed Hawaii for least affordable?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a pretty interesting situation. And it's a lot to do with the lack of higher income and a lot to do with averages and even medians getting pulled up because of the really expensive second homes in the state. So got a lot of billionaires and stuff that kind of use Montana as their playground.
Yeah. Because
of that, it skews the data. And then there's a lot of millionaires that follow the billionaires and, the whole thing. So, yeah. So it's really a statistic. It's like a little bit of clickbait.
Yeah.
Median home prices in towns they're not affordable, but they're still more affordable than the headlines would lead you to believe. So,
well, I mean, if nothing else on the clickbait side of it, I guess we could sit there and say, congratulations. If you're not in the billionaire territory, you must be in the millionaire territory.
I'm definitely not in the billionaire territory. That's for sure. So that's not even close. Oh, that one. I didn't make it to Bezos's wedding. So, yeah.
What's he thinking?
I don't know.
Cancel his Prime Day. What are we talking about? Just cancel that.
I know. Whatever. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So because of your varied and diverse background, did you just stay in appraisal as you were reaching out and meeting people? You started in residential. Did you stay in residential? How did things progress?
Yeah, well, so right at the end of my school year, I graduated in 2017. It was my December of 2017. That 9 credits that I got, I ended up being able to graduate in 3.5 years with my 4-year degree while working and all that other stuff. And then I took the commercial broker in town out to lunch. I was trying to break into commercial appraising, and I joined a little conglomerate of other commercial appraisers and was renting an office with them and started that whole process. And I show up to this lunch deal and we sit down and talk about everything. And then at the end of the lunch, the commercial guy, who's in his late 60s, just said, I don't have any kids. I don't have any plans. I think you should come sell real estate with me and then buy my commercial brokerage. And it was, 45 minutes into this conversation, and we've maybe gone through some of my history and stuff, and we hit it off. We were compatible, both kind of ski bums. He was a ski bum and a climbing bum, and then so we hit it off that way. And I thought, God, damn it, Randall. Actually, I thought, damn it, Randall. I just got my life kind of set up, and so I'm just out of college, all that stuff. I have to go convince my wife now that this is a good idea. And that, we're going to change horses again, honey. It's going to be this. And so I did. I got my license. This was in 2018. So this was probably beginning of 2019. Got my license. Started selling some commercial real estate. I was doing some BPOs and stuff, but I didn't actually finish my commercial appraisal. So my general license, I didn't get that, and started selling and kind of bringing some of my appraisal experience, my couple personal deals that I've put together, started doing some commercial. And 2021, I bought the firm from him. He unfortunately passed about 2 years ago. So yeah, it was a really quick decline in health, and it was just really too bad. But he had his biggest 2 years ever, the last 2 years of his life, and he was kind of working part-time, and it was really cool. And now I have a commercial brokerage. I have a small appraisal firm. I just have one appraiser that works in that firm. And I sell a lot of commercial real estate. And so that's the appraisal side of things kind of led me into that.
Yes.
And then as I started doing sales, I realized I could probably roll my commissions into deals.
Yes.
And so I started doing sales and rolling commissions into deals and putting partnerships together.
Yeah.
And now I'm with a group of people. You know, I'm probably 45% of the pie, but we've got a pretty nice size portfolio these days. And I'm doing some development. it's kind of interesting. And the appraisal is really what led me to all these avenues.
Yes.
Because it was just, people were paying me to underwrite their deals, and I got to look at lots and lots of stuff and ask questions and go talk to mentors. And then also, I don't know if you guys have had the same experience, but people always want to talk to an appraiser. I mean, they're not the most talkative group of people, but people always want to ask them, well, how much is this renovation going to help my kitchen? You know, and I've even had
somebody text me, there's a bill before the local, before the mayor that it looks like they may actually approve. He's like, is this going to boost the value of my property? And I'm like, look, bud, I don't know. It won't hurt, you know? That's what I can tell you.
Yeah. That's awesome. But it is like, people want to know that stuff, and they don't necessarily there's so many other inputs out there.
Yeah.
So they definitely, I've even been chased down from taking comp photos. You know, I'm sure everybody has a story where someone, oh yeah. So I got chased down, and this guy was just yelling across yelling at me, and kind of swerved in front of me like he was going to get out and kick my butt. And I was like, well, I'm an appraiser. Here's my card, and I'm just taking this comp photo because it looks like you bought this house 6 months ago for X amount of dollars. Did you do any improvements to it, or was there any? I just started asking him some questions, and total change in his attitude. Oh, well, actually, yeah, I was thinking about doing the kitchen, and just like 2 seconds ago, you're going to tear my head off, and now you want to know about your kitchen. So I guess I don't know where I was going with that story, but the appraisal.
It's the joy of experiencing life and other people when you're out there taking photos.
Well, and
the appraisal experience.
It does, yeah, because you're interacting with people, and that's where I was going with it. The connections that you make through appraisal are really powerful. You're talking to developers, you're talking to general contractors, you're talking to brokers, you're talking to bankers. You're developing relationships with all these people that are really important pieces of the puzzle. Yeah. And if you start thinking about the big picture and maybe putting together some bigger things, you already have intimate relationships with all these people. Like they'll pick up the call when you're calling them because they value your input. And so it really greases the wheels for lots of things, development, for sales, for, just your own business, as an appraiser, continuing on doing appraisal. And so I just encourage appraisers to treat those relationships really with a lot of care, because they can take you to the next level. That's the garden that you're going to grow your next crop in, so you got to take care of it. And I think that's something that some appraisers just really miss, and we have to deliver bad news all the time, but you can do it in such a way that people they'll understand, So that's kind of what I would encourage appraisers to just realize, that, man, I say yes to this job. I do this work. It's maybe not something I want to do right now, but I'm going to build a relationship, and it's a favor for this guy. It's not necessarily a favor that you're not trying to hit a value or something, but it's a favor, like they just need someone to do the assignment, and that will build trust in the marketplace, and all of a sudden now you're going to be a preferred referral, and you're going to be busier than you've ever known possible. So.
No, that's fantastic. You made the reference. A lot of people probably caught the reference. Maybe a few didn't. When you talked about rolling your commissions into deals,
Yeah.
Hear a little more about maybe a recent opportunity that came up and how you did that.
Yeah, let's see. I've got one. Yeah, I'm trying to think of one that's not too complicated.
Even if it's complicated, it's probably more enjoyable for people.
Okay. Well, yeah, if it's complicated. All right. So in the last year, I bought a $7 million apartment complex. We will do some updates to it, but probably the one that I want to talk right now, I'm doing a development where the land developer is going to subordinate the land to us for 2 years. He's going to give it to us for 2 years. We're going to be able to build these commercial condos on it and then sell that on the way out. We're actually going to have the cost of the planning and some carry costs on the debt for those 2 years as part of our cost, but maybe a couple $100,000 for this $4.5 million project, which will be good. But the one that I'll talk about is a development deal that I did last year. And so we built them about this time last year, September last year. And I owned this land already. We'd bought it with a bus facility. So School District 1 runs all their buses out of our facility. And then it came with this lot that I actually lost a lot of sleep over the lot when we were buying the bus facility because I didn't know what I was going to do with it. It was like this old gravel pit. So it's dug out, it's ugly, and I didn't know what to do with it. So we held on to it. It's about 10 acres. Held on to it. Our other deal was cash flowing. It wasn't really that much of a burden. So we just kept like, okay, something will happen. Then we're watching some land deals around and we're like, okay, well, I think it's actually probably worth something. Let's put it on the market. So we put it on the market. I have the listing. We get some activity on it. And finally we get a couple people that say, well, we really want to kind of develop this. And so I said, well, why don't we just grab my development crew and some of your capital, and we'll roll in the land. You guys roll in your cash, and now we'll have this site for $1.3 million, or a $650,000 site with $650,000 in cash, and then now we can build what we want to build, which we built about 20,000 square feet in kind of shop space, and we'll build another 20,000 square feet next year, and it's going to turn into a net operating income of like $400,000 which is fantastic. And then it'll have a value of like 500 or 5 million. So that's kind of a situation where there wasn't a clear path forward. I wasn't going to take the risk to go build $1.3 million in shops to see if it works. But I took a little bit smaller piece of the pie, but I just made a bigger pie. And that's really and then as a percentage of that, my commission, I took a commission out of that sale, went to kind of keep business going, but then was able to contribute to, we had a cash call to be able to finish the building. And we're going to have like $400,000 in debt on the first phase. And that's going to produces about 15 grand a month, and should pay for itself. And so I think a lot of people think also, why would I do this with someone else? And I don't remember who said it or where it's from, but we can go a lot further faster with a group than we can by ourselves. And
love that.
And you can reduce the risk and you can do a whole bunch of things. Now, there are some annoying things, like I'm getting 17 bumps from one of my business partners on something because he's got some urgent thing in the corner of my screen here, but like that's part of life too. So I'm just happy that I've been able to be successful so far and just trying to mitigate risk, right? So I don't want to end up where I'm holding the bag for everything and I lose everything that I own. That's not worth it. But
yeah, that is something else. I'm just really encouraged by how, again, bringing your resourcefulness to the table, and you talk about how professionals in the valuation and appraisal space really many of the times are compensated to participate in the analysis of an asset, which goes into underwriting. And that if you're the one who's consistently looking at that kind of information, you're better than ChatGPT or some LLM or some of that highfalutin stuff people talk about these days, because you're actually the source and you have all the information. And you would be the one more than anybody else to know if it's a good deal or not. And clearly you're doing that.
yeah. Well, and to take that information, then take a little bit of action with it is what I would encourage other people to try, and the first deal was we bought a fourplex. My father and mother and I bought a fourplex, and it was because I'd done so much analysis on so many deals. And this was the 0.5%. So it was more than two standard deviations outside of the norm, right? So I saw it. I'm like, this is a screaming deal. I should just put it under contract for the asking price. And I did that day, not knowing how I'm going to figure out any of the other stuff, just knowing that like this is so far out of the standard deviation that unless there's something completely wrong with this property, it's worth way more than this. So it just languished on the market forever. They took it off the market and they brought it back on $40,000 or $50,000 less than they had it on the market. So all of a sudden it was like, yeah. And we bought that. I turned that first 50 grand that my dad lent to the partnership into, now we have $1 million building. We have the school district 2. We have 3 commercial condos. It's basically grown into about $900,000 that first initial $50,000 payment. And I didn't even have a license at that point. So it was just pre-license. So
that is so inspiring. I absolutely love that story, man. Absolutely love that story. I mean, Tyler, given everything you've seen and everything you've learned and experienced along the way, what are you looking forward to over the next 3 to 5 years?
I think we are going to see a big change with AI. And I think there's a lot of doomsdayers. Most appraisers, when I was at least entering the industry, thought the sky was falling all the time. And, they were terrified of AVMs coming in and taking their jobs. And then they're terrified of someone else taking their job. Every time that we've come out with technological advances, it's increased the workload and improved our life. And so I think AI might even have its own demand. And just like when women entered the workforce, it might increase our economy. It might be like 10x our economy. And so I actually think this is probably one of the most opportunistic times in our lifetime. And right now, depending on your asset class, people are going to be able to spend more money on things that they really want to do because they will have more money, because the economy will expand. And because of that, I think, buying and holding real estate is still going to be a good choice, good long-term goal. I am excited to see how AI kind of impacts the appraisal industry. It would be unbelievable if we could just go to these sites, go to a house, go to a business, have all of that data in a place, and basically be able to write the appraisal through conversation at the site and make sure that we don't miss something, Like, wouldn't that be just amazing that appraisal's all done by the time you get back? You maybe can stop for lunch, and you can write 3 or 4 appraisals a day and you're still licensed, you're still taking the risk there, and you're still reading everything that you're putting out, but it's just going to expand our capacity. So it's really cool.
Yeah, that is definitely the case. Yeah, that is a fascinating approach when you start to consider just the ability that, we've heard it so many times, we just kind of like, yeah, whatever. But to consider that the computing power that we hold in our hand in the form of a mobile phone is greater than the computing power that existed in prior decades when they strapped a few people to big rockets and sent them to another mass in space. Yeah, called the moon landing. I mean, we just take such things for granted. We have no sense of the magnitude of
information.
Information, yeah, but just opportunity that we literally have accessible to us. And then something like a GPT is just another version of that, whether you like it or not. I was listening to Gary Vaynerchuk over the weekend, and I love his reference where he's like, look, if there's one thing I've learned in my life, he goes, I basically just observe human beings. And people think I'm smart and can see the future. I'm really not that smart. I'm just observant. And he's like, I'm really just an observer of activity and culture. And then I look to see where it's transferable. And if there's one thing I've learned in my life, and that is technology wins. Love technology, hate technology. Doesn't matter about your emotions. Technology wins. And for that reason, he goes, I'm not betting against AI. He goes, I'm just trying to figure out how to do more with it so it can improve my life and improve the business and ultimately other people. Yeah, have a greater ripple effect and not be washed out by it as opposed to helping guide it or drive it. I was like, hey, that's fascinating.
Yeah, well, and I would agree with that. I also think personal goals, I'm going to continue to build my portfolio. Yeah, I would to get that to about 100 million in commercial.
How long do you think that'll take you? Another 18 months?
No, it'll take a little bit longer. Maybe
a year?
I'm going to chip away at it. It'll probably between years 4 and 5, I think I'll get there.
Yeah.
So I'm adding 10 million a year. All of a sudden it'll be 20. So
that is great to hear. Well, Tyler, man, I really appreciate it, man. This is fascinating.
Thanks for having me.
Privileged to learn from others what they're up to and different little corners of the industry and not just doing work, but applying the learnings and at the same time making your local areas better through development, but more importantly, also helping ensure your financial well-being.
Yeah. Well, and trying to help other people achieve wealth along the way too, and I think that's a big part of it. So.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, Tyler, people that might have an interest in that or pick your brain a little further, how can they reach out to you? Or how can they follow you?
They can LinkedIn is probably the best platform that I'm on.
Yep.
So you can find me on LinkedIn. Just Tyler Warne. I'm in Montana, commercial broker. Then they can reach out to me via email or my website, which is just, I think you can probably put it in the notes, cbcmt.com. And I like to hear what people have to say, or if they've got a great idea or an opportunity or any of those things, or just a question on how to put a deal together. That's one of the things that's the most fun is the creativity that can happen in commercial real estate. So really love doing that sort of thing. And anytime, anywhere, just reach out and I'll do my best to get a hold of you.
So wonderful. Well, Tyler, thanks for your generosity. Friends, thanks for joining us. I mean, I can't imagine that you too won't have, 100 million in the next, maybe 10 years instead of 4 to 5, but we got to get started.
These guys can way outpace me. I'm just hanging out, man.
Hey, Tyler, I'm a believer. I was on somebody else's podcast here a couple weeks ago, and they were literally blown away when I told them that my bias is that appraisers should be the richest person at the table.
Yeah.
Like when there's a deal going down, like that appraiser, unless you really get to know a great investing broker, I'm like, that appraiser should be the number one person. I mean, they get all the information and they have all the relationships. Money is cheap. Money is not hard to come by. Money chases deals. They need people that can find good things and put them together and identify opportunities. And whether it's highest and best use, repositioning, you talked about that $7 million multifamily, all that kind of stuff. People are happy to be part of that. And they do not want a big piece. They just want to be invited.
Yeah. And that deal, for example, took us about 45 minutes to go through the deal. Mm-hmm. We raised In one meeting, we raised $2.5 million
Yep.
just because the deal made sense. It's a 80% IRR for 3 years, so that's great.
Sign me up. Sign me up. Well, Tyler, I appreciate it, buddy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was great.
Friends, make sure, hopefully Tyler's piqued your interest on the power of investing and doing well for yourself by doing good work. So make sure to subscribe, make sure to like it, and do what you do best, and that's share. Until next time, friends.
Thank you for listening to Appraising's Appraisers on Purpose. Your enjoyment, enthusiasm, and encouragement are contagious. What an honor to highlight the paths and achievements of our guests. Thank you for doing what only you can do, clicking subscribe, clicking like, and then sharing this with 2 peers. When you signal to Spotify, LinkedIn, and YouTube that appraisers are valuable, everyone's life and work are elevated. We'd love to hear from you. Post a comment and then message on LinkedIn. Again, thank you for your time listening in on Appraisings. Go create the change that you seek.